And so now like, we could say, oh, now I'm satisfied with that graph. I modified everything I want. Now I want to save it so I can use it in my report or in my presentation or things of that sort. And so for that, we are going to be saving the chart in a JPEG image. Okay. So for that, I need to talk a little bit more about what's a graphics device. Okay. So again, a graphics device is the thing where you can draw graphs in R. You can either see it on the screen or not see it on the screen if the graphics device has another role than showing to you, the user. Okay. And there are a number of graphics devices that exists that allows you to save into physical documents that are inside of your folders, so then you can use them somewhere else. And I'm showing you again just the JPEG one, and just the JPEG one because I think that's probably the most useful in most case scenario, but there are plenty of other. Now, to choose the proper graphics device, the best and the most simple way is to make sure that first, our graphics device is closed. Again, I execute the function that's going to close that graphics device, or at least the active graphics device, which is dev.off, okay? And dev.off as in device off, like turn off the graphics device. And I like to execute it a couple of times just to make sure that there is not some stray graphics device that's open somewhere in the computer, which you might not see on the screen because not all graphics devices are visible on the screen. And so after you do that, now you are ready to create your plot on a graphics device that will save into a document, into a JPEG document. But first, before we do that, we need to check that we are actually using the R properly so it saves in a specific spot. For that, we're going to check our working directory, okay? And to do that, we use the function getWD, G-E-T-W-D, like as in get the working directory. Working directory is the folder where R is able to save documents into and read documents from, okay? So if here I already had set it to the proper working directory, but if it's not in the proper working directory, what you can do is use the function setWD, S-E-T-W-D. And that function takes at least one argument, which is going to be the address on your computer to the path, that's the proper word, to the actual document, or not the document, sorry, the folder. Okay, so now I've already done that, so I'm good, I can move on to the next. Now I can do the JPEG function. The JPEG function takes at least one argument, which is the name of the document you want to save. There is a number of other arguments you can use. JPEG is a graphics device, right? And it saves a JPEG image. You can also change, for example, the size of the graphics device, of the JPEG graphics device. It has a certain size of, I forgot how many pixels by default, but you can change that to, if you want a higher, a larger image or smaller image, you can change the size of the JPEG image. Then we can draw our graph. And so to draw our graph, we need to draw it on that graphics device. So the graph that was on screen was on a different graphics device. So now we need to execute the same code again. Now, plot or any other of the graphing functions that generate a new chart, a new graph, will open by default the visible graphics device on your computer. But if you already have a graphics device that's opened, like in our case, now we have the JPEG graphics device that's opened, it's going to draw the plots there. So now I execute plots, and I also want to have the title, so I execute the title function, and I also want to have this not really trend line, so I'm going to execute the function segment, and then it's super important, you're not done yet. You've drawn the graph, you feel like you probably have drawn the graph, but it's not yet in the document, okay? It's not yet in the folder, rather. You need to do dev off, and now it's going to be in the folder. And so now I can go to my file explorer and go to my folder learning R. And now you can see here, you have the CO2 plots that was created just now at 5:07 p.m. And if I double click it, it would open that JPEG image. There we go. And now it opened that JPEG image. Now this document here, that photo, I guess, according to the computer, can be used, and you can use it in your reports or etc. Now you can see here the aspect on that graphics device is a little bit different than the aspect on, well, actually on the image. Now it's not a graphics image, it's not a graphics device anymore. That's the actual image document. You can see that maybe you would not consider that to be good enough. For example, the characters for CO2 and time might be a little too small, right? So you could go back to your program and modify that to have the proper aspect, okay? And this, you can do some of that directly when you have the first default graphics device that shows you the graph. You can make it look just the way you want, and then save it. And then if you see that there are some differences, then you might need to go back and do a few adjustments here and there, okay? And so that's how we save a graph in R. And I always like to execute DevOps at least twice to make sure that there is no other graphics device that's there that's still active, right? And when I do that, it says cannot shut down the device. And then you have a number depending on how many devices are there. And so that's the end of that video.